on locations throughout the world.
Standing passengers, please do not lean against the doors.
Picture goers, we bring to you new films of interest.
Chicago in State is next. Doors open on the left.
The miracle of the motion picture.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.
Chicago's a nice town if you're looking for pizza.
Welcome to 4 Stars, a Chicago film podcast, a podcast about movies set in Chicago. I'm one of your hosts, Paco Alvarez. For this episode, my co-host Jeremy Martyr and I had the pleasure of interviewing actor Joe Farina, the son of legendary Chicago actor Dennis Farina. Dennis Farina was a Chicago police detective who began a long second career as an actor after being hired as a police consultant in Michael Mann's Thief, in which he also had his acting debut. Farina went on to star in the Mann-produced Chicago TV show Crime Story, as well as plenty of other movies including Code of Silence, Midnight Run, and one of Jeremy's personal favorites, Little Big League. He was also a stage actor who made his debut in Chicago's Steppenwolf Theater in a play directed by John Malkovich. We talked to Joe about growing up in Chicago, his memories of visiting his father on set, and his father's legacy in the city. This is our first straight interview on the podcast, and we're hoping to do some more. Hope you enjoy the conversation.
Okay, welcome to the podcast, Joe Farina. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Not bad, not bad. It's nice, and it's about 10 degrees cooler than it was in the previous weeks, and I'm happy about that.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. But I'm still sweating like a dog here.
Exactly.
But, anyway, good to be with you guys.
Thank you. We just wanted to ask, just to introduce yourself, talk about your connection to the city, and then introduce your dad a little bit and his connection to the city.
Sure, absolutely. I was born and raised in Chicago. I don't know if you want me to give you my age, but I'm in my early 50s. We grew up mostly on the northwest side of Chicago. We moved around a little bit, primarily on the northwest side. Then in around 1974, my parents got their first house. They bought a house, my mom and dad, on LaPorte and Sunnyside in Jefferson Park. And my dad was the late Dennis Farina, the former policeman and Chicago cop. He and my mom, Patricia, my mom sadly passed away about 7 years ago. They were married for about 15 years, had 3 kids. Myself, I'm the youngest. I have 2 older brothers, Michael and Dennis Jr. But we were, even though I live in the far northwest suburbs now, Chicago still means a lot to me. I have a lot of great memories. When I tell my kids what it was like growing up in Chicago, really? Is that what you really did? It was such a different world back then. But still a Chicagoan at heart. Absolutely.
Yeah, Joe. I want to sort of dig into that sort of like that growing up in Chicago. Like, what were some things that you did? What are some things that your dad took you to in Chicago at the time?
Well, it was wonderful growing up, whether it was, a place my dad took me or my mom. I just remember playing baseball with my buddies, playing wiffle ball, going door to door, knocking on their door to play ball, sneaking off to Portage Park or Wilson Park, which was awesome. I can recall going to, when my parents were together, I used to go to my brother's Little League baseball games at Portage Park, which was wonderful because I was with my mom and my dad and my brothers, but we also had really close family friends who would go to the games and everything. I went to Our Lady of Victory Grammar School, graduated in 1986, and then I went to Gordon Tech High School. I graduated from there in 1990, which I loved, and I'm graduated of DePaul University. So I would say Chicago means a lot to me because I had opportunities, especially after I graduated high school, to go to college out of state, but I really wanted to stay here because it meant a lot to me, and my friends and family were here. And then in college, I met some really awesome friends who I'm still with today, still friends with today. And it's in my heart and in my soul. And I grew up, early part of my life. My dad was a policeman. He was a detective, and we were part of that life for a little while. And then things changed drastically a little bit later on.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that sort of transition, your dad's time on the force, and then the transition to that different life, that acting.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was unexpected. Nobody expected my father to become a very famous, successful actor. If you would have asked anybody, friends, family, even himself, he didn't expect that at all. That transition started in the early '80s with a movie called Thief, directed by Michael Mann, another famous Chicagoan. Everybody out there should know who Michael Mann is by now. If you don't, go check it out. Pretty big director. And my dad was hired as a consultant because some of his friends from the police force were involved in the film, and they needed consultants to help out with storylines and how policemen talk, what would they say, what would they do, in certain situations. And then my dad was asked to be in the movie itself. I think at that time, my dad was pretty distinctive looking. Uh, he had this huge head of dark black curly hair. You couldn't miss it. He had this really thick black mustache, and if he looked at you, it looked like he could, I don't want to say it. If I ever did something wrong when I was a kid, my dad would give me a look. I said, "Oh my God!" But he had a certain look, and Michael Mann put him in the film. And for somebody that never did movies, plays, theater, anything prior to that, if you watch that movie, my dad has really, really incredible screen time, and so significant that at the end of the movie, he is the last bad guy to be killed, and it's a very dramatic scene. And I can recall watching that at the movie theater, and I really thought they shot my dad. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they did that!" And my dad's sitting right next to me. I was only a little kid, and I, didn't register. Um, but then from there, he gradually got into theater, and then started doing commercials, and things just built from there. But if you would ask me in the 1970s, anything prior to 1980, nobody expected my father to be an actor. And I think if it didn't happen acting wise, he still would have been very happy and very content with being a policeman, without a doubt. Not just a policeman, a detective.
How did your dad's time on the police kind of inform his acting?
That's a great question. I'm sure it helped a little bit, but I think his perspective was, when you go to watch a movie or a television show, that's not reality. That's entertainment. That's not the real deal. So he tried to separate that from what happened off screen as well. But I'm sure that knowledge of growing up in Chicago, being a policeman, and the different characters and people that he met throughout the years, probably helped him significantly. He wasn't a method actor at all, so he didn't take whatever happened in real life, and he was not a method actor. That wasn't his deal, not at all. Some people might think that because of the police background that he had, that if he played a policeman or something involved with that he might turn into this character for 2 weeks before. It was never like that. He was somebody who had that Chicago mentality, whether you were a fireman, a baker, a street worker, whomever you are. You go do your job, you know your lines, be a little bit open-minded, know where you know what you have to say, know where you have to go, and then boom, you're done for the day, and you just leave it at that. So I think there was a little bit of that acting stuff, real life stuff that he brought to acting, but my gut feeling is he didn't let it get too carried away, because there's a difference between being a policeman out on a call somebody's been shot or hurt, or you're going to the scene of a burglary or robbery, which my dad primarily was involved in, and then being on TV or being in the movies. It's a really, really fine line, and you have to be really, really careful about that. And I think he was.
I feel like someone like Michael Mann is a good way for a bridge for your father to get into this art, because our whole podcast is about how Hollywood views Chicago and the ways in which our city is depicted. The ways in which many times productions come in, don't really care to ask the right questions or do the work. And Michael Mann seemed very much so interested in taking that reality and bringing it to the screen. Do you have any stories or memories of your dad working with Michael Mann?
That's a great question. Before I can answer that, but that's a good point that you hit on, and especially with Michael Mann. If you watch Faith, for example, those night scenes, the natural moonlight. If it had been raining, you can see the water on the ground, the puddles, and how the light kind of reflects that. That's really unique to Michael Mann and his film style. And I'm sure whatever experiences he had growing up in Chicago, he was able to somehow transform that into his directing career with whatever Chicago-based movie that he was working on. Michael, I wish I could tell you that, yeah, I remember this one day when I was with Michael Mann and all that, but I met him maybe a time or two when I was very, very young. But my dad always had high praise for him because he basically, he gave my dad his first role. He gave that role to kind of kickstart my dad's interest in acting. And, and I think that Chicago mentality approach, whether you're an actor or director, there's just something unique about Chicago people, where they grew up, the neighborhoods, the experiences, the different characters that you meet here in the city or wherever, and you're able to bring that to the big screen. It's pretty incredible, and Chicago looks pretty good on before anybody starts talking. Chicago looks pretty good on the big screen, and I think my dad was this neighborhood kid that got lucky. If you would ask him today, he'd tell you how lucky he was. And Michael Mann gave him that opportunity, and then 6 years later, Michael Mann offered my dad the leading role on Crime Story, which was a Michael Mann production, and Michael Mann was hot at the time because of Miami Vice, and but my dad eventually, thanks to Michael Mann, that connection, my dad got that first big leading role on TV with Crime Story. Crime Story was a big deal at the time, I thought, and I remember I was a little bit older when that happened. I have a lot of great memories of it, but that Chicago connection is well rooted, well seated in there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just watched the pilot. It was really good. It was really I was really impressed by how much of the filmmaking was in Chicago, and sort of like how rooted it was in, I think, in a more like complicated idea of the city. I thought it was really interesting. While he was filming for Crime Story for like 2 years, right? 2 or 3.
Yes, correct.
Did you ever like visit him on set, or were?
Oh, sure. I remember all the guys very well. When he started Crime Story, I had just graduated from grammar school. It was the summer in between my 8th grade graduation and then starting my freshman year in high school. And the majority of that first season was filmed in Chicago. And I remember all of that. I was on the set when, during that first, you just mentioned the pilot, during that first scene during the pilot, that chase, and then it goes off into the neighborhood and they're trying to chase the bad guy. And I was there. I was there watching that. And it was surreal because it was really, not to sound naive, but it was really the first time that it hit me. So, wow, Dad's hit the big time. This is I was very aware of how significant this was, even at age. So, wow, this is because my dad had just retired from the police force that year or the year prior. So to go from one career and then have the confidence and success that he had to retire from that and then go into acting and then have a very successful and longer acting career is pretty amazing. But I remember all the guys on Crime Story. They were all wonderful. I was with my dad quite a bit whenever time allowed. If I wasn't in school, I was probably on set. John Santucci, I remember, and Andrew Dice Clay, and Steve Ryan, Billy Campbell, Bill Smitrovich, all those guys. Stephen Lang, everybody should know who Stephen Lang is. They were all wonderful, and they were all great to me. And during the second season, the storyline had moved to Las Vegas, and I remember that summer. It was the summer of 1987. Myself, my dad, and my two older brothers, we drove from Chicago to Las Vegas, and it was part of that trip was awesome. Part of it was absolute hell, but it was unique because I'd never been west of Oak Park. Really, I'm not kidding. I was, my family was not very wealthy. We didn't own any other properties or we didn't do any of that as a kid. If we went to Kittyland or Great America, that was the big deal. So now my dad is in this position with his acting career to do this, and I went with him, my brothers, and we were only supposed to be there for a week. And after a week, my father came up to his sons and said, "Look, you can either go home or you could stay here." My brothers, they're older, said, "We're going to go back to Chicago." And I said, "Hell, I'm staying." So I stayed the whole summer, and I remember being on the set watching those, quite a bit of those first episodes of the second season when they went to Las Vegas, and I loved it. It's a long time. It seems like yesterday. It's a long time ago. It was surreal. It is still surreal, and I had access to things that I never realized. If I was walking in a casino, for example, around the gaming tables, I was only 12 years old. I'd just be walking around, and one of the casino managers would come out, "Hey, you cannot be here." And I said, "Well, I'm with my dad and his group. They're right over there." And he said, "Oh yeah, okay, you're good, buddy." Yeah. So I was able to just kind of walk around the gaming tables and just had that access, and it was incredible. And I don't want to give anybody out there the wrong impression that I was rich and that I was wealthy or anything, because I was not. I'm still not. My father did, he earned that, but I was not wealthy, or I was just a normal everyday kid from Chicago, went to school, hung out with his friends, wanted to meet girls and do all that stuff. But I don't even think my dad ever expected for that to kind of happen. I see my dad, I think of my dad. A lot of people out there might think, well, when they look at my father, and he was a great dresser, suits and all that. But for me, the first I think of when it comes to dress is my dad in a t-shirt khaki shorts. Sometimes they were striped or plaid, black socks, and sandals, smoking a cigarette. That was the dad I remember and knew. So he went from that to, being able to afford, this type of wardrobe and everything like that. But I can honestly say that, it probably changed him, but that Chicago connection and Chicago foundation never left him at all. And I think that helped sustain his career, because it was just one of those things that, he never lived in LA. He lived in Arizona and he had a house in New Buffalo, Michigan, but he never lived in LA. It just wasn't his thing. He'd rather be in Chicago or close to it as possible.
Yeah, another Chicago institution that your dad sort of had a part in was Steppenwolf. There, he had some times where he tread the boards. He worked in theater. Can you talk a little bit about those theater days?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I remember them like yesterday. So after Thief, okay, we're talking very early '80s. He got a small role in a short-lived TV series called Chicago Story. Some of you out there might remember that. Then, exactly, he started to, I forget how, but he got connected with the talent and the people at Steppenwolf. What had happened was there was a play, it was called A Prayer for My Daughter. And that play was directed by John Malkovich. Now, this is before they became who they are. The play starred John Mahoney, Jeff Perry. Jeff Perry, his daughter, played the mom in Young Sheldon, Zoe Perry, and Terry Kinney, John Mahoney, and Jeff Perry. And at the time, there was a gentleman, an actor named Jack Wallace, and it was a 4-character play. And my dad somehow became the understudy for Jack Wallace's character, who was one of the main roles of the film. To make a long story short, something happened where Jack Wallace couldn't do the show anymore. And my dad, being the understudy, took his role as the lead in a Prayer for My Daughter. And my dad had never done a play, ever. And I recall going to see it for the first time very, very well. I went with my maternal grandparents. I was staying with them, my mom and dad's parents. And they were just beautiful people. They were awesome people. But they took me to go see the play. And I see my dad coming on and reciting all these lines. And I'm thinking, how is he doing that? How does he know what to say and how to say it? And because this was all new to me as well. And I was so mesmerized by it. Oh, I can't believe it. And as his son, watching his father, there's that sense of pride and amazement. When the play was over, it was very emotional for me. But I stood up. Now, I'm only a kid here. I'm only 10 years old, guys. I stood up and I'm clapping my hands, standing up, gave him a standing ovation. And I'm telling everybody in my section to stand up. That's my dad. Everybody stand up. So they started standing up. And I can recall vividly to this day, my father waving to me from the stage. He knew exactly where I was. He got the tickets, so he knew where I was. And he knew where all the hubbub was. And he waved. And it's in a very emotional time. And after that play, I went backstage and I met up with my dad and Terry Kinney and John Mahoney and Jeff Perry, John Malkovich, and they were all wonderful, wonderful people. And I also remember, because my parents, keep in mind that my parents were separated and then got divorced eventually. They went through a nasty separation and divorce. I don't even want to get into that, but it was really, really tough. So I wasn't with him. I didn't live with him. I lived with my mom. But whenever I got to see him at his apartment, I remember a few times sitting at the kitchen table, and to the left of me was maybe Gary Sinise or Jeff Perry. And then on the other side, Joan Allen. And I had the biggest crush on Joan Allen for years. I mean, I just was mesmerized by her. I don't even know if she even remembers me. But I used to draw pictures for her and like these little letters. She was just drop dead beautiful. Oh, I was just so enamored with her. And she was so nice too. But here I am sitting at the kitchen table with my dad and these two amazing actors who would eventually become so famous. But so it was it's still surreal to me. It really is. It's something that I look back on. I can't believe that happened. But deep down inside, I wish my parents were together when all this stuff happened. But that's not the way it worked out. So the time I spent with my dad was when he was starting to evolve into this second life as an actor. Sorry, I didn't mean to get too deep on everybody.
Hey, I love it.
Like,
No, it's
whoa,
great.
hey!
I love it. I love it. No. That's the unvarnished side of it. That's what a lot of these movies that your dad was a part of is not shying away from those things, but embracing them and talking about them. I was wondering if you I mean, you're an actor yourself. Did you catch the bug at this early age with that, and do you use that in your work as well?
Great question. Great question. Yes and no. I had those experiences, like we've just been talking about, spending time with my dad on the set, whether he was doing a TV show or movie or even a commercial or theater. I would go to rehearsals with him sometimes and read through the lines and read through the script with them and all that stuff. In retrospect, now that I'm a little bit older, I wish I could have gotten involved in acting maybe a little bit earlier than I did. I didn't get involved in acting until much, much later because I think really I wanted just to, and still do in a way, just have my own life and create and pave my own path to my life. And it wasn't always easy. And I think it wasn't as though I was running away from it, but it was challenging at times when my dad became an actor, and it was very, very challenging because number one, my parents were going through this god awful divorce. Over time things become a little bit more settled and amiable and amicable and all that. But at that time it was hard because for example, we'd watch Crime Story and together, my mom and I, 2 hours earlier, they were on the phone arguing with each other. And it was really, really tough. And it was challenging because I also had these people who I didn't even know, just random people, whether it was in the neighborhood or in school, come up to me and say, "Hey, man, I know you. And are you rich? Are you wealthy? Do you live in a mansion? Did you take the limo to school today?" I'm like, whoa, whoa. And I'd be like, it was, imagine being a teenager, you're going through your own crap. Now I got this on top of it. And sometimes I would say, yeah, I took the limo. I took the green limo, the 78 Montrose. I took that. I might have left my bag of millions of dollars on there. Hopefully they'll find it. Or, I was trying to make light of it. Or I say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I want to learn more about you. Hey, where are you from? What's your name? And then they say, you know what? You're an asshole. I don't want to fucking talk to you. You jag off. So, wait, whoa. You, who the hell are you? They would say, who the hell you think you are? You. So it was like, hey, man, I'm not like that. My father's not even like that. My brothers aren't even like that.
Yeah.
What the hell? So in a way, it was a turnoff. So, boy, I don't want to. Is this the crap that I really want to deal with? No, I don't. And I was a teenager and all that. I said, I just wanted to enjoy my life, hang out with my friends, meet girls, go to college, just do all those normal things. It wasn't until much later in my life where it hit me. I said, you know, I think I have the act. There's just something in me, and I think being around my dad at that early age absolutely had a big influence on me. Uh, Absolutely, I learned a lot from him, but I also learned a lot independent of that. Some of it good, some of it bad. I'm no different than any struggling actor or actress out there now listening or watching. Just like you, I have my struggles. I don't get every role that I audition for, regardless of the name. I still have to work hard or do my thing. Um, so it was. I had to find a good place to say, okay, let me give acting a try. Let me see if I like it. And that was around the time I met my wife in 2003. And I told her that I want to try this. And she said, yeah, absolutely. And so I've been doing it ever since. And my, I have a good support system with my wife and my kids and everything. But having those experiences with my dad, that's as I get older, I really start to realize how unique that was. And I'll tell you this too. I think at some point in my life, after all the crap my parents went through their divorce and all the stuff I went through and my brothers went through, I think I had a choice. I said, okay, do I want to have nothing to do with this guy, or do I say, you know what, I want to try something, some kind of relationship or communication, because I was the youngest. So I didn't have a lot of that time when my parents were together. My brothers did, but I didn't have that time. And so I think I felt like, boy, if, do I just say, hey, screw you, Dad, or hey, how are we, we got to work on something. And we had a good relationship. We got along great. We had our moments. There was stuff that he did that I did not like, and I would tell him, especially with my mom and my family. I said, Dad, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. Wouldn't stop him, but say, hey, Dad, you're a better person than that. You could do better than that. But we spent a lot of time together and have a lot of special memories. And uh, I miss him very, very much. Uh, but I'm thankful that I have those memories, whether they're negative or positive. I have them.
Absolutely. It's a difficult thing, reckoning with these histories and these stories that other people tell you about your father when he has his own, story for you. Do you have like a way that like you want like his connection to Chicago to be remembered?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's many ways I can answer that, so bear with me. And if it gets too long, you just tell me. Um, I think number one, here he grew up North Avenue in Ogden. He came from a big Italian family. Both of his parents were from Italy, and they grew up in Chicago at a time where it was just in the 40s and 50s, where it was just so unique and so different. You think about all the people that he met, those characters, all that stuff, all those experiences. Um, he was very, very well rooted in Chicago, even when he went into acting. It never left him. he was just this neighborhood kid that got lucky, and he went from being a policeman to being a successful actor as well. And when he was on the police force, he was detective. He worked burglaries and robberies and jewel thieves and all that. And he was a very good policeman. He was very, very good. And I think if he didn't go into acting, he would have carried on, as far as he wanted to, because I think he really enjoyed the camaraderie that he had with his friends from the police force. Some of his closest friends were from the police force. They were from Chicago. Some of them were people that he grew up with. He never let the Hollywood stuff get in the way. He was this Chicago kid who made good, and I think he, I as time goes on, I wish, maybe I'm being selfish, but I wish, really, when you think of Chicago, some people might say Joe Mantegna, some people may say Jim Belushi, but the first person you should think of is Dennis Farina, and I think he's a legendary Chicagoan, and I think he should be honored as such. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, and also he was a terrific actor. He really was. He didn't just play mob guys and policemen. If you look through the whole catalog of his work, he did a lot more than that. And I was fortunate enough to see him in his early days when he did theater. He really became a terrific actor for somebody. Now, there are going to be people on the internet saying it, but my father never took an acting lesson in his life never did. His first acting lesson was when he became that understudy at Steppenwolf. That was kind of his first acting. But prior to that, no way. He did not have an ambition to be an actor, not at all. We didn't grow up in a Hollywood lifestyle. We were just a regular neighborhood, middle-class family from Jefferson Park, Northwest Side. I think he becoming an actor, he just got better with whatever project that he did. He was able to connect with some really unique people at the time, Michael Mann and John Malkovich and John Mahoney, who were very strong advocates of him and supporters of him very, very early on, and helped him along the way to kind of teach him how to be an actor, and both the performance side and behind the scenes and all that stuff. But the Chicago never left him. I wish I had a chance to say goodbye to him, but I didn't. My dad was sick. He was living in Arizona, and I didn't get it. A lot of people didn't get that chance to have that closure with him. But I think, again, selfishly, when I think of Chicago, who is a true Chicagoan? When you connect all the dots with the neighborhoods and families and people you knew and acting, I think my father should be number one, without a doubt.
Absolutely. A Chicago thing that I want to talk to you about and mention with you. Baseball is like so important to me. I programmed a baseball series at the Music Box, and we played a bunch of baseball movies. That was a real highlight of my life. Your dad did a few baseball things, and one of them was Little Big League.
Yes.
He had a small role in Little Big League, and Ashley Crowe is in that movie.
That's
Ashley's
correct.
son is Pete Crow Armstrong, who is
Correct.
the current MVP candidate for the Chicago Cubs. He also did a performance of Bleacher Bums, right? Which is
Yes, he did.
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about his connection to baseball, to the Cubs, and all that?
Wow. I love baseball, and I have since I was a little kid. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation, when I was a kid, I used to go watch my brother's baseball games. And then I eventually started playing baseball in Little League at Portage Park for a long time. Made the All-Star team a bunch of times and just loved it. Yeah, again, I don't want to put a bad rap on my father because my parents were separated and got divorced, but my mother took me, or she was at the majority of the game. So when I think of baseball, it's that connection to her because she was there with me the majority of the time, and that means a lot. It really, really does. And my love for baseball eventually turned into playing softball and so forth. But to answer your question, Bleacher Bums, that performance was in 88 or 89. I was in high school. It was at Victory Gardens. Joe Mantegna created it, and I think he directed this production at the time. I could be wrong. Joe Mantegna, great guy, really, really good guy. My father was great in it. I mean, again, going back to theater and just seeing him play this character, this bleacher bum character, and it was 89 because the Cubs won the division that year. So you have that element to it. So it was, there was a lot going on, and it was nice because it had been a few years since my dad did theater because he'd done Crime Story, Midnight Run, he'd done a bunch of movies. So this was a nice step back into theater. So he did Bleacher Bums, and there's that Chicago connection again. And he was wonderful in it. And I remember seeing it. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times, and it was great. And he was great. And yeah, I mean, baseball. When you're in Chicago, if you're not playing little league ball somewhere, you're either playing softball, mostly 16-inch. Or some people play 12-inch now, and but yeah, he did a great job in Bleacher Bums. It was great, and I think Joel Murray was in that as well. Bill Murray's younger brother, and I think Ron Dean, who's a Chicago actor. I don't know if that rings a bell, but he's a character actor from Chicago. I remember Ron very well. But yeah, it was great. It was the junior year of high school for me, and the Cubs won the division, and so there was a lot of good vibes going on during that time. And he only had a small role in Little Big League, but he was pretty funny in that.
He's memorable. That's the thing, is he'll have a small role and he'll pop, like, even in the beginning of his career. Do you have any other questions, Paco?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if there were any kind of like underrated or underwatched roles of your dad that you particularly love.
Sure. Oh boy, that's a great question. I mean, my gut instinct is the Crime Story. I think that's the stuff he did on there is remarkable, and I think that if that was on TV today, it would just take off because it's just incredible. He was great in it. It was a challenging time for him and for our family, but he did great. He did great in that. There's a movie that he did. I can't think of the name of it, and I should, but it was a Empire Falls. It was a mini series that he did with Paul Newman and Helen Hunt, a bunch of famous people, and he was great in that. Empire Falls, it's called. I think it was on HBO or something like that. And then one of the last films he did was called Authors Anonymous, and he played. If you go and watch, it's bittersweet. It's really, really bittersweet because it came out right before he passed or right around the time. But he's terrific. He's terrific in that. And I think, and I'm trying to think of the right way to do it. The more he did it, as the years went on, I think the better he got. Even though I think he was great right from the get-go, right from that first standing ovation that I gave him way back in the fall of 1982 when I saw Prayer for My Daughter. Yeah, and I think, and also I think most people out there will say Midnight Run or Snatch or or Get Shorty, and rightfully so, because he was great in those. He was great in those. He really was. Yeah, it's funny. He was a funny guy. He was very funny.
Yeah, I wonder if you have any stories about him working with Chuck Norris on Code of Silence, because that's one where it's like we don't talk about Code of Silence, but there's a series of '90s movies where it's like you watch them now and it's like, okay, this might not be like the best movie I've ever seen, but this is rock solid with just like good lighting and like great acting and all this stuff. Do you have any stories about that period of his life?
I do. Code of Silence came out in '85, and he filmed it in '84. And I can recall one day I was with my maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, and they heard that my dad was filming Code of Silence, those opening scenes of the movie, when he's riding in the garbage truck and they have that shootout and that chase and all that. So I went with my grandma to the set, and they were filming. It was along the railroad, it was train tracks there. I forget where it was. I don't know if it was in Uptown or I forget what stop it was. It was a long time ago, but I went and saw them film all of that and saw my dad do his stuff. I thought it was the coolest thing. I met Chuck Norris, who was awesome. He was really nice. And there was a photo that I had of myself and my dad from the set, but it got destroyed in a flood a long time ago. I wish I had it, but it was completely. But I was on the set watching that, and it was wonderful. And before I went back to my grandparents' place, the makeup person put a fake black eye on me. I mean, it looked amazing. I mean, it was the real deal. So when I got back to my grandparents' house, my grandma and grandpa opened the door, and I did, oh my God, grandpa, man, I got, he fell for it because it looked so real. And then my great acting skills, of course. And he's, oh my God. So he ran to get ice and, all medicine, all that stuff. And, oh, grandpa, I'm just kidding. It's fake. They did it on set. So that's what I remember about that. But that opening scene, I saw that whole thing. I remember it like yesterday. It's like, yeah, all right. Yeah, it was, how can I put it? Not everybody can go on the set and watching a film or TV show, a scene being made is pretty, can be pretty, there's a lot of waiting around, but it's pretty incredible to see. It really, really is. I was fortunate enough to kind of break that wall because I had access to the other side, and I was able to sit next to my dad and walk around the set, and it was without anybody bothering me. And it was nice. It was really, 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 really cool.
Joe, is there anything else you want to mention? We were asking you to dredge up a lot here, so I mean, we can lighten the mood.
No, it's all right. I just want to give out a quick shout out to my beautiful wife, Heather, and our beautiful kids, Olivia and Wyatt. I love them all. I love being a husband. I love being a dad. That's so important to me right now because my dad was not with us every day. That's the reality. I did not grow up having a dad there every day. Neither did my brothers. That's the reality. So it's important for me to be there for my wife and my kids as much as possible. Everything is good, and I enjoy acting whenever I get a chance to do it. I just had an audition. I had to, nowadays it's all self-tape. Before you can go in the casting director and do it face to face, and I'm just so bad at technical stuff. I really, really am. So I have my wife or my kids do it, and they do a really, really good job. So, we'll see what comes out of that. But yeah, I and also too that growing up in Chicago for me was there was good, there was bad, but I wouldn't change it for the world because it shaped who I am right now, and it made a difference in not only my life but my dad's life, and Chicago is really, really unique. So the next time you watch a film or a TV show in Chicago, half the story is already set because it's such a unique place. Not just the downtown sites, but talking about the alleys and the gangways and the houses and the apartments and the sounds and the people really add so much. There's really, really nothing. There's really, really nothing like it at all. Really.
I completely agree with you. It's its own unique space that not many people can truly understand until they live here. Joe, I like to leave people off on a final question. Can you talk about just one food place in Chicago that you remember that you love that you can plug?
Yes. Yes. Couple of places real quick. When I was growing up on the Northwest Side, playing baseball at Portage Park, after the game, there was a place. There was a fast food place on Irving Park and Central. It was called Sammy's, and they had the best hot dogs and fries and burgers, and it was but it was the go-to place, and I just absolutely loved it. My mom and I would go there, have food, and then we would walk home to Montrose and Cicero from there. It was terrific. And a favorite of mine and of my dad's, we used to go here all the time. It was just an absolute favorite. It was Harry Carey's. Great food. We loved going there. And every now and then we would see Harry. Hey, Dennis, how you doing? Is this your son? He's a handsome, good-looking guy. And but the food was just magnificent. So that was a go-to place, Harry Carey's as well.
Thank you so much for joining us, Joe. I really appreciate having you on and talking about your father, his legacy, and talking about your connection to the city of Chicago.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.